Obrigada, antes de mais, por terem tirado um bocadinho do vosso tempo para se juntarem a nós nesta tarde. Hoje a Fundação inicia também um momento muito especial que marca de alguma forma um processo de transição que nós estamos a atravessar e de implementação de novos projetos que possam de alguma forma contribuir um pouco mais para a nossa cena artística local. E abrimos essa nova fase com uma artista convidada, portanto, com Cassi Namoda. Bem-vinda mais uma vez, welcome to Angola, to Luanda. O nosso painel, um pouco desconstruído daquilo que é o usual, conta com a presença de Cassi Namoda, artista convidada para estar em residência em Luanda e também uma das artistas que faz parte da coleção da Fundação. Portanto, este programa público não só vem complementar a nossa programação com as residências, mas também tentar de alguma forma conectar o trabalho da nossa coleção e trazê-la um pouco mais próxima aos nossos artistas, aos nossos curadores e tudo mais. Para conduzir esta conversa e navegar pelas águas das memórias, das vivências da Cassi durante estas semanas em Luanda, temos a curadora Suzana Sousa, que tem um papel importante na nossa fundação como parte do Advisory Board, que nos dá insights importantes para que nós possamos conduzir este projeto juntamente com outro grupo de pessoas a conduzir este projeto da melhor forma possível, ou pelo menos tentando. Portanto, vou passar a palavra à Cassi, à Suzana. Espero que gostem da conversa, guardem as vossas perguntas, aproveitem para ler o texto que a Cassi escreveu, que está impresso nos vossos assentos e que vai conduzir e informar esta conversa. Muito obrigada e até já.
Boa noite a todos. Eu peço desculpa, mas a conversa essencialmente vai ser em inglês, porque a Cassi sente-se mais confortável em inglês, mas entre mim e a Edna vamos tentar traduzir sempre que for necessário. Sempre por isso, se houver alguma questão, façam-nos um sinal que nós vamos traduzir.
Desculpa, we'll make it work.
A Cassi é uma artista moçambicana que cresceu e viveu sempre fora de Moçambique, daí a dificuldade com o português. Neste momento vive em Itália e, apesar de ter uma formação em cinema, trabalha essencialmente em pintura. Nós hoje, eu vou pedir a ela que comece por nos falar um pouco sobre o seu processo criativo e o que é que tem feito até agora e passaremos depois a falar sobre o projeto que a trouxe a Luanda e especificamente vocês têm o texto e tentarmos perceber o que é que ela está a pensar e a fazer neste momento. Could you introduce yourself for our guests?
Sim. Olá, boa noite. So I'm an artist that now is based in Italy. I was born in Maputo, Mozambique, but grew up in Anglo Africa. My paintings pertain to Luso Africa. That is the landscape in which I draw inspiration from. And I'm here at the NESR Art Foundation residency, and I decided to take in visual account of Ilha de Luanda, future exhibition. So the conversation I'll have with Suzana is a visual guide to essentially how I approach painting. So if the slide maybe? Sure. And I want to apologize in advance if my baby comes in and starts screaming. We are used to it. So I'm hoping that these paintings can embody this very godly moment, right? When light changes. And so so currently in Luanda, I have this balcony where I'm interacting with this landscape, which is the Baía de Luanda. And every moment of the day, the colors are changing, and that informs me as a painter. So I can't help but feel like when I go back to my studio, then they will inform these paintings. You know, we have figures, but then there's the color blocking and then this sort of action. So painting doing something different than the painting before. So we have this woman feeding seagulls. How do you say seagulls in Portuguese? Gaifotas. See, okay, so I'm having a lesson. Um, I would maybe think that this is the morning. The seagull, the gaifotas are hungry in the morning. Foma e manhã, right?
I think you also show that through the colors, the use, how
Right.
you use the colors.
Exactly, right? So it's like I think of like a visual memory of how to capture color, to have a kind of human DNA experience of how we relate to color as like you know, as a human experience.
Do you want to, from this idea of time and colors, take us to the work you are doing here in Luanda? You already mentioned you are working from a balcony in
Yes.
Bahia.
Yes.
What are you doing? Can you share with us what's the process of it?
Yeah, so it's very simple. I wake up. But by the way, Angola has a very short day. No, it's like the comes up at 6 a.m. and it goes down at 6 p.m. It's fantastic.
But at the moment, the seasons are changing, so it's it's the end of our hottest season, and we are moving into the cooler season.
So does it change a little bit with the? Okay, okay. But yeah, so I used different accounts of the day to observe life in the Baía de Luanda, which I learned from Dominic that the Baía de Luanda, what is it? It's an inlet or what do you call it? It used to be an island. It used to be the Luanda. So that's why I was confused because I was like, well, it doesn't seem like a iya, but so what is it now? It's an inlet or what do you peninsula? So it's a peninsula, yeah. So I'm engaging with this peninsula where I can clearly see the entry point into Rwanda, and I can see the exit into the great abyss of the ocean.
You seem to be looking inwards to Bahia.
I'm looking very much inwards. I'm not so connected to the the afterlife, essentially, because I mean, if we were to think about how Africans even approach time, there's the author John Mbiti, the Kenyan theologian, where he, explores African, spirituality and Christian theology, and he speaks about notions of time, right, in sort of the African landscape. And I thought about like, well, the ocean is the abyss. So I'm just focused on the present, which is the direct view from my terrace. So I'm only engaging with that and nothing left or right.
I mean, the Bahia has, from it seems that you are looking to the Enseada, right? Not to the bay side. Yeah.
So I would describe this when I was trying to explain it to colleagues. This view. This view is kind of like, you know, when you're in a restaurant and then there's like the back door to the kitchen. and you see all the things that's happening in the back of the kitchen, that you don't, yeah, well, you don't have to interact with it. So like life, cargo is arriving, fishermen are going out, oil boats are coming in, there's rigs, there's these very it's kind of a multitude of layers, right? It's very complex. Then you have this avant-garde fisherman who comes out on the daily, and I would even think that he's a symbolism of the sort of true spirit of like making nothing from, you know something from nothing. He takes this float and he finds these plastic paddles and he goes fishing. I mean, we don't have the videos. The videos would be interesting. Um, you have two? Oh, okay. And then you have probably these are the children of some of the fish moppers, and you can see they're very comfortable out in this body of water where they're just floating, also on an abstract shape, and using abstract material to navigate this sport.
But take us through your creative process, because you compare this to the window of a restaurant kitchen. So there's a sense that you don't interfere with the work, but you seem to be deeply engaging with the scenes and what's happening. How then this will translate into your
Well, I mean, this will translate because I think it's the art of seeing, and it's the art of collecting experience and a sensorial thing, right? I don't have to engage too much. The only thing I have to do is be present with what is around me. And I think that was instilled in me because I've lived in many different places. So for me, it's just about being very present and aware, but also seeing the poetry and the beauty in things. Because for me, this is a painting in itself. You have these shapes on the upper left that are, there's colors already there. That's an abstract moment right there. Then you have this, abyss of water. That to me is texture. So it kind of comes innately where I see beauty and profound moments, holy moments in life unfolding. So for me, this is a gift because as a painter, the moments keep unfolding. And then the symbolism, like wisdom line, I was like, well, that's an exhibition. I can make a whole exhibition on what wisdom line means. Oh yeah, this was interesting. But so essentially, like I thought about it also in like prayer time. So in Muslim, we pray 5 times a day. So there's the morning, which is Fajr. So the sun rises at 6. So I would capture life happening at 6, and then I would capture life happening at 12, and then 4, and then sunset. So those were like my reminders and to capture, because every moment there was something different happening. So morning I saw labor, which in painting I'm also very interested in scenes of labor, and I'm also very interested in scenes of rest. So anyway, I think about also like the omnipresent, oh, is this the last one? So it's the last one. But so that's more or less how I've been documenting, and I'll continue to document until I leave the residency. I leave Luanda and I leave this view. um, is to capture these moments and how life transpires. And also, when you think about this view here is so responsible for so much of the backbone, the spine of Rwanda. I mean, it's an entry point.
I really like the concept of seeing how you frame it in your text. This idea you just mentioned of being present, I don't think is that immediate for most people. I think it takes a lot uh, to see. For instance, in an image like that, you mentioned the fisherman, you mentioned economy, history. There's a lot in a picture like that. But when I look at your paintings, there's also a process of simplification, of keeping just the essential.
Yeah.
Can you, how do you go from all this information to that moment where you're able to just capture whatever, whatever you want to show from one picture?
I think it's just a reflection of me, right? Because me painting is just how I relate to myself and the good I see in what is external. So if it's I think it's just the phrase know thyself. It's like you um I would recommend to any artist, when anyone coming out of school, they say like, how do I, if the question is, how do I make it? I think it's just about having a more in tune relationship with yourself and the art of seeing. I would say that my daughter has made me better at seeing because when she was born, all I did was stare at her. Time became more abstract. And so it's only made me more attuned to just being utterly present.
I think we could open to the audience for questions and people thoughts. Yeah.
First of all, nice work, really good. So I want to know how do you, in this really weird time that we live in, with this pressure for productivity, for doing more things every time, everywhere, how do you approach be? I don't want to say authentic, but still do the things the pieces that you do in the way that you do with no with a force with no sense of rush. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's another thing I forgot to mention is that I came to this residency without the pressure of productivity. I'm like, I'm on African time here. I'm not on European time. I don't need to make product. I think that also some artists believe that you have to make product in order to be like an important painter, but you could make one painting a year, and that could be the best painting ever made. So I think that goes against the grain of capitalism, against the grain of productivity. Productivity starts with uh, how are you producing spiritually in yourself. But so yeah, that I mean that's what I would say, because I had to really learn the hard way not to overly engross myself in the pressures of capitalism. And I think for an artist that's really freeing. Also, historically, artists didn't have to overproduce. Most people wanted really good painting, so they would leave the artists to their own devices. And many artists also, like Marcel Duchamp, would say he wasn't making work for 10 years and then he had a full body of work. So you can just lie to people and say that you're not making work.
Boa noite. Trabalho incrível. Muito curiosas. E a minha pergunta é sobre como a maternidade mudou o teu olhar sobre o mundo. Como é que essas fotos, de certa forma, ah, têm a influência daquilo que foi o processo da maternidade na tua vida?
That's a very loaded question, but because when my daughter was born, I had, this goes back to capitalism and stuff, but I had 3 exhibitions back to back, so I never took maternity leave. So I was never, I mean, I took 40 days to rest with my baby, but then after I just did the African way and slung her on me and started painting. But still, it's a very fine line because I had to use my, but we as women, we can do this, but I use my mind. I'm like, okay, I'm a painter now, and then I'm mama. So I switch off. I can't do both. And then once the exhibitions were done, I was like, I fully was, I became actually more attuned and more present because then I really lent myself to my daughter. And then I noticed how painting changed. So I actually had to learn something deeper about myself. And then I think the galleries are happier with the paintings. I mean, at least I'm happier with the paintings because um, I'm a different person. I'm more, I'm just more. Obrigada. This is a Mozambique connection.
É um prazer ver-te aqui em Luanda. Parabéns. Mas tocaste numa coisa que intrigou-me. Qual é o impacto que a pressão das residências tem no trabalho do artista? Porque a ideia que eu tinha é que era um momento de residência, era um momento assim criativo para os artistas, onde encontram-se, existem várias trocas, etc. Mas tocaste aí numa coisa que eu nunca tinha pensado, que é se calhar esse lado mais industrial e capitalista da residência, não é?
No, I came here. I came here with intentions to actually write. When I think about Luso Africa, I can't help but think of the writers and how that's such an important aspect of the landscape in which we exist in. You know, we in Luanda, there's so many incredible authors, in Mozambique as well. So I thought that I wanted to feel what it was like to be in that frame of mind. So in some ways, I'm visually note taking, but yeah. So I already came with this idea that I didn't want to have the pressure of production, and then because that would throw me off from actually taking a more intimate a connection with Luanda, with Angola. So the thing that I look forward to the most is actually leaving Angola and seeing how I've changed as an artist, right? Like because you gain something. But if I'm here and I'm like I have to paint and I have to do the thing, then I one, it's just not enough time. You know, I would have to live here for that to happen. But yeah, so I really, I always recommend artists to not do what they do in their studio in the residency. And it's okay to feel like you don't know what you're doing because that's a part of the experience.
Sorry. I want to know if when you arrived, you already knew what the subject of your research and consequent work would be, or when you arrive to any residence or any new country, you wait to see what are the influences you are going to find or and to be inspired for.
Well, in my younger life, like I would come and I was like, I knew exactly what I'm gonna do, and that became really boring. So typically, what I do is I come. Well, now I don't even travel with. I just go with paper and watercolor, and that's it. And if I can buy material locally, I'll do that. So, but this time, like I mentioned, I came with the idea because I'm writing a synopsis for a film. But then life granted something else where I was like, okay, there's this time is still an abstract thing. Anyone with children knows that you think that you're going to have time for something and then it turns out being something else. But yeah, I just really leave it as an open book because I mean, residencies are very different for many artists, but for me, it's to get outside of my daily norm. So if I'm going to the studio at, 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 at home to produce, then why would I do the same thing here? Like for me, it's more about coming with a very open slate because that'll only serve me for future work. And but like I said, it also depends on the residency. But I think it's also really interesting to lend yourself to the landscape, lend yourself to the history, to the people. Whilst I was in Ireland, I learned about the potato famine, and then I made a whole series of small intimate paintings on uh, potato famine, but I called it cassava famine. So I was thinking about climate change in the global south and that, the staple foods like mandioca will be the only thing left. So then I called it cassava famine. So I think it's an education and it's about being curious. So here I am trying to get a better understanding of the socio-economic landscape of Angola and how it pertains, how it connects to the greater, Luso Africa and then also the Pan-African landscape. And that is something I'm still in the midst of researching.
Parabéns,
Obrigada.
sou moçambicano também,
Oh, muito prazer.
muito orgulhoso do teu trabalho. Adoro a forma como ilustras o tempo, com as cores, o amarelo, o azul, e como expressas o tempo no teu trabalho. A minha questão para ti, sendo moçambicana, que teve experiências em outras partes do mundo, sendo artista, alguma vez tu entras em conflito do que é que significa o tempo? Acredito que a forma que as pessoas olham o tempo seja diferente. Uma perspectiva africana, uma perspectiva europeia. O tempo pode ter um significado diferente. Mas tu, como artista, como africana, e que teve experiências e passou por vários outros sítios, chegas a entrar em algum conflito do que é que significa tempo para ti?
That's an interesting question. I think that time is a very metaphysical experience. And it's also very abstract, right? Because concepts of time change from landscape to landscape. In the West, there's an ebbing that There's a past, a present, and a future. In a lot of African landscape, particularly in East Africa, there's a term for the past. The past is called the Zamani, which is a Swahili term. It's like a void of darkness. So things are floating in that dimension and that portal. And then there's the Sasha. The Sasha is the present. And you don't ever talk about the future. The future is it's an abstract. In the West, we're so consumed by the future that it brings us anxiety. We're constantly thinking about what we're going to eat, what's tomorrow, and etc. And then there are notions also around rural life and time. And often, like in Sudan, they don't even believe that there's such thing as wasting time. They believe that if you're sitting under a tree and you're taking a nap, you're producing time. So there's this idea that you can produce time, which goes totally against the grain also of capitalism. So I think about these different notions of time in my work, and then also in a metaphysical sense, like in Islam, they believe that God has the ability to speed up time and to lengthen time, and that once time is sped up, it means that we're actually getting closer to Judgment Day. So there's, there's so many different concepts and notions of time, and that God made time, and but He doesn't exist in that plane. Like we exist in it. So that's why I'm so fascinated by time as a visual kind of symbolism, where we can think about colors, passage of time, and then routines around time, but then how it's also an extremely abstract thing, right? So yeah, those are some of the, I mean, I can go on about time, but it's why it's such an important part of the way I process things.
Hi, Cassie.
Hi.
It's a pleasure. I would like to, I'm actually interested in your life experiences, and I would like to, is there any remarkable story for you to share with us? Any funny story, tragic story that maybe that we might be able to perceive in your work, for example?
This is one of the most remarkable experiences. Okay, just off the top of my head, I think about when I took a road trip from Zambezia to Nampula, and the people I met along the way, and the night that I spent in Guruwe, a tea plantation in. You want to play with your friend? In Zambezi region, and I remember it was unintentional, and I had to spend the night there with two Swiss women, and the only hotel was a pensão, like a religious pensão. And I called my mom and I was like, I can't stay here. And she's like, oh, but you have a cousin. And my cousin shows up in 1 minute, and I remember, it's all the things that happen along the way that make it so, when you really lend yourself to experience and to life and all the magic that reveals itself. I remember sitting in the dark because we didn't have light, the power went out, and I remember a really good caril de camarão, and I remember her chopping off a head of a chicken for chicken dinner the next night. you know. So I think about all these experiences, or I even think about when I was in Zambezia and I took a walk into a local village, and I met this woman in this village that was eating peanuts and drinking beer, and she was very, very drunk. And she started telling me stories about the Portuguese and their arrival and her daughter. But so what I'm saying is these lived experiences that make the painting.
Thank you.
Obrigada a todos. Eu acho que agora podemos conversar entre nós e se houver mais questões podemos falar. Obrigada.